From Uncover DC by Brian Cates, October 12th, 2020. President Trump has put some very stupid rich people on notice. In a late August interview with Laura Ingraham for the Fox News Network, Trump spoke about the continued rioting and rising crime Americans have been watching with increasing alarm in the blue cities such as Portland, Oregon, New York City, Seattle, and Chicago. While commenting on this, President Trump said something revealing. He talked about very stupid rich people that are bankrolling and enabling the violent Marxist and anarchistic groups, as well as the governors, mayors, and district attorneys who are refusing to prosecute them. That looks like a dichotomy: incredibly wealthy people funding Marxist revolutions. But once you dig into it, it's not a contradiction at all. The most prominent public figure people think of when it comes to wealthy people funding international leftist revolutionary causes is billionaire hedge fund manager and philanthropist George Soros. Over the course of his life, Soros is rumored to have given away as much as $30 billion of his money, something that might look strange for a miser. He is said to be currently only worth $8 billion. Since he gives away such a large amount of the money he's made over his life, it's clear Soros is far from a miser. For Soros, it's about playing the game to make the money, not the money itself. Once you understand that, you have an easier time seeing what he's doing. Soros himself is very much aware that if a Marxist revolution actually occurs, he'll be one of the first put against the wall. I suspect Soros is not attempting to engineer such a fate for himself. For this reason, I think a lot of people need to stop and think hard about what Soros is really trying to accomplish. What Soros is up to is the same thing he's always been up to: playing the game. The assumption people make is that because he openly funds radical far leftist and anarchistic groups inside the United States and many other countries, Soros himself must be some kind of commie flag waving true believer in Marxism. Nothing could be further from the truth. Much of conservative news media sells the viewpoint relentlessly in endless stories about Soros and his funding machinations, that he is a fanatical Marxist totally down with the revolution. This is not true. It took my recently viewing a PowerPoint presentation from an anonymous source to cut through the constant depiction of evil socialist George Soros that permeates so much of the public media narrative about him. I knew all about the financial manipulations Soros has been doing for decades all over the world, but had allowed the constant "Soros is a Marxist" chatter to blunt my awareness of what really motivates him. And studying his past is the key to discerning what motivates him right now. Soros has spent decades in the public eye, and his financial maneuvers, the vast harm they did to entire nations, are a well-known matter of public record. From breaking the Bank of England back in 1992 by short-selling the pound, which earned him a single-day payoff of a cool $1 billion, to breaking the banks of Thailand and Malaysia in 1997, 1998. Soros has made numerous financial gains by betting on national currencies experiencing a drop in value. A brief description of short selling. Short selling is an investment or trading strategy that speculates on the decline in a stock or other security's price. In short selling, a position is opened by borrowing shares of a stock or other asset that the investor believes will decrease in value by a set future date, the expiration date. The investor then sells these borrowed shares to buyers willing to pay the market price. Before the borrowed shares must be returned, the trader is betting that the price will continue to decline and they can purchase them at a lower cost. What Soros has been doing is that he has been betting heavily on a steep decline of the US dollar by a certain date. How much he's bet and what the expiration date is, only he knows. Soros does not want a successful Marxist revolution. Far from trying to foment a successful Marxist revolution in the United States, what Soros is really attempting to do is play the money markets to make a financial killing, the very same thing he has been doing throughout his entire sordid career. He wants to cause enough chaos and instability to trigger the expected return on his short selling investments. That's it. That's all he's trying to do. His goal is not to topple the US government and replace it with a Marxist one. Why speculate when you can create? Rich people playing the money markets engage in speculative betting that a particular currency will drop in value by a certain date. It is a very risky investment strategy, and only the most experienced traders engage in it. And social unrest within a nation is one of the biggest things that can cause its currency to drop dramatically in value. When a country becomes unstable due to unrest, rioting, war, natural disaster, terrorist attacks, or some other calamity, there are financial vultures poised to move in for the kill. They have bet their own money, often millions of dollars, on this happening. The difference between Soros and most other money market players doing short selling is that most of these other players do not have hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in creating the societal upheaval that will produce the decreased value in the currency that they are betting will occur. Soros does. And he has done it and continues to do it, and he is willing to play the long game, spending over a decade and hundreds of millions of his own dollars funding the radical leftists running for political offices and the radical anarchist groups that will take to the streets. Because if the US market tanks like he has bet heavily that it will, his investment will pay off big time, and he will make a financial killing worth billions of dollars. He will have won the game. So, the couple of million he spent ensuring radical leftists like Kim Gardner, Kim Fox, Schmidt, Ted Wheeler, and others would be elected to key blue city positions will turn out to have been money well spent. The couple of million he spent equipping and enabling Antifa and BLM and other anarchist groups would be a sound investment if he manages the kind of return he is expecting. Thus far, President Donald J. Trump has kept the money markets from completely collapsing and has kickstarted an economic recovery. So, whatever returns Soros has gotten over the past year have been much slimmer than he was anticipating. Soros likely expected an almost total collapse of the money markets and for the dollar to plunge to historic lows. Had that happened, he would have gotten a return in the billions for the couple of paltry millions he had spent helping to set up the nationwide insurrection. Well, here's the kicker. George Soros is far from the only billionaire playing this sick and sordid game with the lives of hundreds of millions of Americans. While Soros brags about what he's doing and does it pretty much out in the open, there are other billionaires betting on the decline of the US dollar, and this is why Trump also told Laura Ingraham this financial backing for groups like Antifa and BLM and support for radical political candidates is coming from very stupid rich people, people you've never heard of, people in the dark shadows. You've heard of George Soros. The people Trump is talking about here, you will not recognize their names. There are over 2,800 billionaires in the world, according to CNBC's calculations and an article from this past June. You only know the names of a handful, and the people playing the short selling game in the international money markets fomenting unrest inside different countries to try to tank the currencies so they can make billions are indeed in the shadows. You would not be able to pick them out of a lineup. But I do not think they will be able to stay anonymous for much longer. As a billionaire himself, Trump has been very aware for decades of the kind of financial games people like Soros have been playing with the lives of hundreds of millions of people in many different nations. Trump knows the massive damage these evil people have been wreaking all over the world and how they have set their sights on the big prize, America herself. Trump is very aware of what this group of billionaires have been doing, and he has been working on countermeasures. There was a reason Trump set up an expansion of federal asset forfeiture as one of the first things he did upon assuming office. All of these very rich, very stupid people are about to wish they'd played a different game. Brian Cates entered the political arena in March 2012 following the death of Andrew Breitbart. He is currently a political columnist for the Epoch Times and Uncover DC. Brian is based in South Texas and is the author of Nobody Asked for My Opinion, but Here It Is Anyway. Follow him on Twitter at Draw and Strike. Subscribe star Brian Cates, the Epoch Times, Brian Cates. Donate any amount at paypal.me/draw and strike.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.